So let's give a big round of applause to Dr. Doug. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Well, thank you all for coming. This is so wonderful to see so many people here. And like Steve said, I'm Dr. Doug, and I wanted to just start out with a caveat that I am not a forensic psychologist, but a lot of the work I do has a forensic bent to it, which means that a lot of the people that I evaluate are motivated to lie, either in the good direction or the bad direction. And so I've had to figure out how to tell when people's words aren't actually lined up with what might be going on at a deeper level. So, for example, if I'm evaluating someone and they tell me, oh yeah, I drink 1 beer a week, and then I figure out it's 1 keg of beer a week, which is a little bit different. They tried to get away with not saying any unit of measurement, but it's that sort of thing that has sort of forced me to get more into this content that we're all going to be talking about. I'm going to start out by telling you about Dexy. Now, Dexy is the tiniest black and white tuxedo cat that you will probably ever see. And everyone always thinks she's a kitten because she's so tiny, but actually she's 16 years old. And when she was at her heaviest in her youth, she was a whopping 6 pounds. That made her into a little meatball. And she was so strong. So if you picture like the strength of an ox and the relative strength of an ant, that's sort of her, that's Dexy. And as you can imagine, that ox-ant is almost impossible to give medications to. So small, strong, and she would just squiggle out of any restraint. So fortunately, for most of her life, we were able to get away with no oral medications. Then last year, the unthinkable happened. I woke up, went downstairs, Dexy came out, she's dragging 1 leg. All the worries that just went through my head in that moment. Go to the vet, vet says, no problem, it's just arthritis. All you have to do is give her daily medication. And my heart just sunk. How do you give an ox-ant medication every day for the rest of her life? And so my veterinarian said, no problem, do the burrito method. You do this, 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 cat can't move, you can give them medication. So I go home, show my husband, because he's going to be the one restraining. Here's how you do the burrito method. Boom, boom, boom. Seems easy. We did not know that Dexy hates burritos. Who would have known? So he ended up improvising and did instead the sushi roll. And this was roll, roll, tuck in body parts, roll, roll, tuck, tuck. I reach over, I grab her mouth, open it up, stick in the syringe, squeeze the medication, and the medication goes all over her cheek as she dodges out of the way. And of course, at that point, I have no idea, did any of it make it in? Did none of it? I don't want to overdose her. I don't want to do the wrong thing, so let's just give up for this first attempt. Attempt number 2. Sushi roll, tuck, tuck, roll, roll, tuck, tuck. I'm reaching over, I'm trying to open up her mouth. She, which is similar to what I can only imagine Houdini looked like in a straitjacket, squiggled, and then all of a sudden this one little paw comes out over the top of the sushi roll. We've got this. Tuck the paw in, open up the mouth, stick in the syringe, squeeze the medication. Medication goes into the mouth. Yes. She makes a gulp swallow sound. All of that looks good. I feel like something is not right. I don't know what it is. I'm staring at her, and she and I are just eye to eye. And her sweet little innocent eyes are saying, that was so yummy. Thank you so much for taking care of me. She, of course, forgot that I'm a psychologist. I'm an expert in behavior. I believed not one word that her eyes were saying. I continued to stare at her, and what is that glisten in the side of her mouth? What is that drool going all the way down her chin? And now Dexy's eyes are desperate, and her eyes are saying, that? Oh, that has nothing to do with the medication. It's a totally different thing. Don't worry about that. I was worried. And I knew it, of course, had to do with the medication that I just stuck in her mouth that was now coming out. So, attempt number 3. Sushi roll, open up her mouth, squirt, gulp sound, eye to eye. She played it cool. Dexy could have been a poker player, pretending like everything was fine. But like most amateur poker players, the thing that gave her away was her tell. And her tell was the drool. And in that moment, even though we normally think of drool as being a negative thing, I was thankful for that drool in that moment. Wait, did I just say thankful for drool? I was thankful for the drool because that drool was the telltale sign that what I was seeing on the outside was not matching what was going on the inside. Well, at some point, of course, we figured out the right strategy, and we've been able to successfully give her medication. Every time I give her medication, though, I'm staring at that corner of her mouth, making sure that there is no drool. So similar to Dexy, who was trying to pretend like everything's cool here, nothing's going on, just move on by, all of us right here in the room have sometimes said things to other people that maybe didn't represent the whole story, or maybe represented only part of a different story. And when we do that, then there's sort of that mismatch between what's coming out and what's going on in the inside. So let me show you one example of that. Ashley, if you could you read your card?
Yeah, good evening, ma'am. Did you know that you blew through the stop sign out on the corner of Beatty and Armour?
Oh, wow. Oh, officer, I'm so sorry about that. I don't know what could have happened. I grew up here right in Davidson. I was born here, and I don't know how long you've been here, but I've gone up and down Beatty thousands of times. I mean, this used to all be farmland. And I must have just been on autopilot. I'm just so sorry. So that's sort of a typical response. And no officer would even blink an eye, right? That's sort of what they expect to hear. And no matter what the intent is going on in the back of your mind, like, how do I get out of this ticket? The expectation is that you're not actually going to say that. The officer expects you to say the typical and expected thing. Now let's see what happens if I actually say what my intent is. Ashley, if you could read that again.
Good evening, ma'am. Did you know you just blew through that stop sign out on the corner of Beatty and Armour?
Oh, officer, I don't know how I feel about answering that question. It sort of seems like a trap. Like, there's no good answer to that, right? I'm actually just trying to figure out what excuse might work on you to maybe make you feel sorry for me, or maybe you'll realize that this is all a mistake. And actually, now that I'm looking at you a little bit closer, I wonder if I actually took blame. you might be so pleasantly surprised that you just let me go. So I highly recommend you never say that to an officer. Instead of coming across as genuine, you will instead make the officer feel very suspicious of you. Because again, in that situation where you are trying to get out of a ticket, the expectation is that your words are not going to match your intent. Now, there are plenty of other times in our life when we do expect there to be a perfect match, where what people are saying to you is actually what they mean. So one example of that is my mother-in-law, who's actually here in the theater tonight. I'm not going to make her stand up. I'm not going to make direct eye contact with her because she didn't know I was going to use her. But she's an example of if she comes to you and says, if you need any help, let me know. And that is 100% what she means. Absolutely. There's a match between the words and the intent. But now all of us probably have met people at some point in our life where they've offered help, but that has not been their intent. There's something else going on in those situations. So how do we know the difference between a genuine offer and a not genuine offer? So one thing is we're going to look at their pattern of behavior. Do they have a pattern of being helpful? If so, that offer is probably genuine. Do they have an offer of not being, a history of not being helpful? Then you should be wondering, why are you offering help? And you might be a little bit wary in that situation. So the second test that you can use to figure out if someone's being genuine is to see what happens if I say no. So if it's a genuine offer for help and I say no, thank you, they will just respond, okay. But if there's a different intent that you don't know about, and if you say no, thank you, you will probably get a response that is a surprise. It may be passive aggressiveness, resent, just something that sort of makes you take a step back of, okay, something's clearly going on here because for some reason they're upset that I said no. So when we're looking at unexpected behaviors, what I'm talking about is if it's someone that you know, what's expected for them? You sort of know, oh, this is how this person normally acts. They're acting abnormal right now for some reason, so that clues me in. But sometimes we don't know that person. And so in those cases, what we're doing is we're comparing their behavior to just people in general. So let me give you one example of that. So imagine that you are in the grocery store in line. And now, Charlie, if you could read your card.
Can you believe this weather? I can't remember the last time it was this nice.
And then I say, I know, I was so lucky last week when I received an award at an outdoor ceremony. Well, that was an unexpected response. We all know what's expected of grocery line conversations, that both of us are just trying to pass the time, be friendly. Maybe we tell a couple of jokes, but both of us have the same intent, or at least we think we do. So then when somebody says something unexpected like that, then you can start to wonder, what is the intent here? Because we're clearly not on the same page in this moment. So this brings me to the heart of this presentation, and the one thing that I hope that you remember coming out of this is that if somebody acts in a way that is unexpected, that surprises you, that unexpected behavior is the tell, just like Dexy's drool, that their words may not be telling you the whole story. So when we're looking at the whole story, what are we talking about? We're talking about intent that is potentially hidden. And that hidden intent might be intentionally hidden. Sometimes it's unintentionally hidden. And in those situations, it's just people who actually just lack the insight to know that they have a different intent. And so they're hiding it, but they don't even know they're hiding it. But nonetheless, these are all situations where that intent is hidden. With that hidden intent, it usually falls into one of two categories. So the one is when intent is being driven by fear, and when intent is being driven by strategy. So let me show you an example of when the intent is being driven by fear. So let's say my partner comes up to me and is very calm and friendly and says to me, hey, just a reminder, in the dishwasher, the bowls are supposed to face left, not right. I just wanted to remind you. And my response is, why does it matter? Why do you keep bringing this up? The dishes are just going to come right back out. Okay, that's unexpected. So that didn't match the tone of our conversation. That is way too big of a response for this topic of a dishwasher. And it's not typical behavior for this person. So now we have three things that are telling me that something is going on. The words are not revealing everything that's happening. So a situation like that is a prime example of when somebody's intent is being driven by fear. So in a situation like that, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of bringing strife into my home. I'm afraid of the rest of my evening now being stressful. I'm afraid of losing that person's love and respect. I'm afraid of losing my own self-esteem. That's a lot to be wrapped up in just this dishwasher thing. But that's what comes up, are all of those fears. But what comes out of my mouth is not this vulnerable outpouring of, oh, I'm really afraid, but instead it's this other layer of defensiveness, blaming, rationalizing. And when we hear those things, specifically defensiveness, blaming, rationalizing, that is a big clue to you that the person is operating from a place of fear. So how about the other type, strategy, when the intent is being driven by strategy? That's a lot different. So with that, the person is behaving in the way they're behaving in order to serve some larger personal gain in the future. And the way that they're doing that is by emotionally manipulating you in order to help move them towards that gain. So we all experience this every day through ads, commercials, any kind of marketing. And we all know this is what they do. This is, sort of massaging my emotions so that I will buy something in the future. So when we see an ad, we fully expect that there's a strategy here. But we're not really expecting it in our day-to-day lives. When it happens, it may not even enter our mind that, I wonder if this person has a bigger strategy. So one example, I'm trying to see the ages in here. Maybe half of you will remember. Leave It to Beaver is a good example. So one of the characters, Eddie Haskell, is a teenage boy. Eddie, when he is with his friends, he is the one that instigates all of the trouble. But when he talks to adults, he is all polite, respectful, I follow the rules, I'm straight arrow, you can depend on me. So what's the future personal gain for Eddie Haskell? The personal gain is that if anybody ever caught him, even red-handed doing something, people would assume that he was innocent because of that foundation that he had laid. So if someone is coming from a place of strategy, how do we figure that out? Okay, one, we're again looking at their pattern of behavior. When someone is coming from a place of strategy, their behavior is going to be inconsistent. They will change according to the situation, according to the people, in order to better suit their purposes. The other part of their behavior that you'll see is that the words coming out of their mouth are going to be very vague and non-specific. So like Eddie Haskell, if he's talking to some parent about something, he's just going to be talking in generalities, But if they try to nail him down to specifics, he'll probably divert the conversation, because that sort of ruins the strategy if you actually give in and give those types of details. So that's one thing. The other way of being able to tell if somebody's coming from a place of strategy is to see what happens when you take away their personal gain. So with Eddie Haskell, what you would do is an adult, if they came up to Eddie and said, I know that you are up to no good. I see through everything. The next time anything happens in our neighborhood, I know it's you. I'm going to make sure everybody knows it's you. So in real life, not Leave It to Beaverland, where everybody's always happily ever after, but in real life, if somebody is coming from a place of strategy and you take away their personal gain, oftentimes the way that they will respond is by acting with maliciousness, with negative intent. So in Eddie's situation, if this adult did this to him, one of the things I could see him doing would be start spreading rumors about that adult, about how untrustworthy he is. And so then if that guy ever did name Eddie as to be for blame for something, nobody will believe him, because Eddie's already made him untrustworthy in the community. So he has neutralized that threat. So there is a third driver of intent, which I wasn't going to mention because it's not hidden. And so it's very different from fear or strategy. And this type is when the intent is driven by conviction. And that means your behaviors are being driven by your principles, your values, your ethics. And it's usually not hidden. If you're acting out of conviction, everyone knows what your principles are. And you're usually not trying to hide them. The only reason I'm bringing this up to you tonight is because it may be applicable for you to know that many times when people think they're operating out of a place of conviction, it may instead be fear or strategy. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but it's just good for you to know. So tonight, what I would recommend for you all is pick one character to really focus on and just pay attention to how they're behaving. And when they do something that is odd, surprising, unexpected, you can sort of be asking yourself, are they afraid of something, or are they strategizing towards some personal gain in the future? And you will be able to have a greater understanding of all of their future behaviors for the rest of the play after that. So unbelievably, we are out of time. And I want to make sure that you have time to stretch your legs before the show and to be able to chat with each other about how amazing this talk was. And if you have any questions, please come get me. I'll be sitting right up here. And thank you all so much again. It was such a pleasure.